In the gaming space, when there's something that's popular, there's bound to be countless clones, from Minecraft to Breath of the Wild, even something like Trails, to an extent. All have their games that try to mimic or copy some aspect of what makes the originals so beloved. And even indie games aren't immune to this. Recently, look at Lethal Company. That game was popular, took off, and then in comes Repo. A game that essentially copies the core of what Lethal Company does, but gives it a unique enough spin to where I think the copy is actually better than the original. And while this game that I'm about to talk about isn't quite on that same level, I still think it was a unique enough experience that I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it, and I'd like to give it a little spotlight of my own, right here on Cyrus's Indie Corner. And what game am I talking about? Well, my fine friends, this is a simple but addicting game called Horde Hunters. And so, why am I reviewing this game in particular? Well, after my last indie video, the developer of this game reached out to me personally and said since I enjoyed this style of game, that they wanted me to check their game out. They didn't ask for a video, they didn't ask for a review, but I enjoyed the game enough that I wanted to talk about it today. And as a show of appreciation for them reaching out in the first place and giving me an opportunity like this. It's something that is still really cool, and this has only been possible because of you guys, the viewers, who choose to watch this channel. So before we get started, I wanted to give a massive thank you to not just the developer of this game, but to you guys. Opportunities like this were something that I never thought that I would get to do. And I will do my best to be completely fair and as unbiased as I possibly can be. Yup, another game based off of Vampire Survivors, aptly dubbed the Survivors-like genre, and is also commonly referred to as a bullet heaven, which is the opposite of a bullet hell, in which instead of you dodging a bunch of projectiles from enemies, you are the source of the projectiles, wreaking havoc on hordes of enemies in your wake. And while at its core, this game does take a lot of the Vampire Survivors formula, so the gameplay loop will feel very, very similar, but it tweaks things just enough to make it a unique experience all on its own. And so, what's the purpose of this game? Well, that's the thing that I like about these indie games. A lot of their names are usually very basic and very straightforward. Very easy to understand, and well, Horde Hunters is exactly what it sounds like. You get to control a bunch of different hunters, which are your playable characters that you can pick from, and you fight against an ever-growing demon horde, using all kinds of different weapons and items and abilities at your disposal. The cool thing about this game is that each character has unique parameters that they get a boost to, whether it be an extra bonus to strength or perception or luck or agility, which can affect various things, such as the size of your starting HP, how fast your weapons attack, the amount of gold you get for defeating enemies, so on and so forth. And each character has a unique weapon that they start with, from your basic melee style weapons like a sword, to a bow and arrow, and even magic. Although I will say the melee characters do all kind of feel samey. I think that's just the downside of, having a melee class. A lot of the weapons that you can get through leveling up do feel different, but the starting weapons all function very similarly. It's the abilities that set those characters apart. But what makes this game truly fun is just mixing and matching, trying out all the different characters and seeing which playstyle you favor the most. You might enjoy the more up-close and personal style that the melee characters offer. For me, I've always had a penchant for ranged characters, because I enjoy hurling countless numbers of projectiles at my foes, and with the right upgrades, can make for some pretty deadly combinations of weapons. Now, how this game functions, it's very similar to Vampire Survivors in that you defeat enemies on the map, they drop little experience crystals which you then pick up, but what makes this game cool is that when you level up, you're not forced to pick something then and there. You can stock all your level ups, and let's say you find yourself in a bit of a sticky situation. You can then pause the game and do like 10 level ups all at once. Get a bunch of new powers, a bunch of new abilities, a couple new weapons, and upgrade everything just in the nick of time. The interesting thing about this game and how the upgrades work is you need gold in order to purchase your upgrades. And once you've purchased all the upgrades of a specific weapon, you get the ability to choose a permanent increase, whether that's extra attack power, higher critical chance, more critical damage, maybe an extra bounce for projectile weapons. And having all these choices and options available to you can make different runs, even with the same gear, feel completely different. But what also makes this game really cool is the addition of actual missions within the gameplay. Instead of just running around an open map and defeating enemies, leveling up, and trying to just survive as long as possible, this game has events and missions and buildings that you can visit that all have different things that they can do. You can interact with a tower that'll shoot projectiles at the nearest enemy. Getting low on HP but don't necessarily have any healing items on you? Well, you can visit a church and for a small fee, you can heal yourself. Or you can visit a pub, buy a bunch of different consumable items that can affect things like damage resistance, attack speed, all kinds of nifty little things. And as you play through the game, you'll get little missions that will pop up on the top left, such as enemy portals appearing that you have to destroy, buildings on fire that you have to put out, or even friendly units that you have to protect for a certain amount of time. And your reward for completing those missions is either a permanent increase to your maximum HP for that run, a set amount of experience crystals, money, or items, with different missions giving different amounts. Some missions can even give you extra party members, like a woodcutter who throws axes at your enemies, or a dog that runs around and picks up items for you, or a cat which has a chance of scaring enemies away. Cats are kinda scary, especially when they're mad. Also, the cool thing about each of the maps is they even have different environmental effects. In the first map, the farmland area, it's very basic, very straightforward, but you can get rainstorms which severely affect visibility, or windstorms which can make it harder to go in a certain direction or even push enemies towards you at a much quicker rate than you can keep up with. The desert area has sandstorms that severely limit visibility, as well as a massive sandworm that will pop up occasionally. So even the maps themselves, outside of looking visually different, all have slightly different mechanics that keep the game feeling new, feeling fresh, feeling interesting. And the extra cool thing, you find a character that you really like? Well, you can continue to play as that character and level them up by completing runs and giving them permanent stat increases that give you just a little bit of an edge for those future runs. And defeating elite enemies and the boss at the very end of a run gives you skulls, which can be used to also give permanent increases to all your characters. Things such as increased melee damage, increased gold count from mines, extra movement speed, which, oh man, in these games movement speed is king, extra ability damage, so on and so forth. And while the OST of this game is nothing special, it gets the job done. But a cool little detail about it, the more time you spend on a map, the music will actually go through different phases, acting as sort of an audio cue, letting you know how far you are in the map and how much time you have left until the inevitable boss shows up. So it's a cool little detail that I figured was worth mentioning. And since each run is about 20 minutes, if you make it to the very end and get to fight the boss, you don't die partway through. It makes this the perfect pick up and play kind of game. You do maybe 1-2 runs and you're good. It's a game that's perfect for both those really long play sessions where you just put hours into something, or for those with maybe not a lot of time and you only can do a little bit a day. But overall, I had a lot of fun with this game. I enjoyed it so much that I unlocked every map and every character, which took me approximately 7 hours. And as the game is about $7 on Steam, if you're one of those players that views Whether or not a game is worth it in terms of total playtime, it definitely would have at least gotten my money's worth. But in terms of fun factor, it was something that I derived a lot of enjoyment out of. So I would definitely highly suggest this game if you're the type of person that enjoys this style of game. And it takes the Survivors-like formula and gives it a unique enough spin to keep it feeling similar but fresh, and is overall something that I would highly recommend if you enjoy these style of games. So you guys will have to let me know if this game looks interesting to you, or not, down below in the comments. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and a very special thank you to all current channel members and supporters over on Patreon. If anybody else wants to support the channel, you can do so through any of the links below. You get things like early access up to a week in advance on all my videos, and extra little tidbits here and there. This has been Cyrus, your host. Thank you once again for hanging out with me, and to the developer of this game for giving me the chance to play it and give my thoughts on it. I truly did have a great time. Peace out, everybody. Stay spicy.
All right, what's next?